Chances are your files live in one of three places: Google Drive, OneDrive, or Dropbox. And for most people, that choice happened by accident. You got an Android phone, a Windows laptop, or a work email, and boom, cloud storage. But here's the problem. What feels convenient now can quietly turn into lock-in later, where your files, your access, and even your backups depend on a system you didn't consciously choose. In today's world, these services don't all play the same role anymore. Some aren't even playing the same game. The cost isn't just money, it's control, access, and risk. Still, there's a fourth option most people don't know about. One where you pay once and own your storage for life. I'll show you exactly where it fits in as we go. That's why today we're putting them head to head to see which one actually makes sense, and which ones might be costing you more than you realize. Before we dive deeper, if you enjoy straightforward tech comparisons like these, consider subscribing. It helps the channel grow and lets me keep testing tools like this. First, let's talk about some similarities between the big three. All three services handle the basics: sync across devices, link sharing, desktop and mobile apps, and some form of collaboration. They also all push the same modern idea: online-only files. You can view your files on your computer without storing the full data locally. They download when you open them. Microsoft calls it files on demand. Dropbox has similar online-only files, and Google's Drive for Desktop describes streaming as primarily cloud-stored, with offline access when accessed. All pretty much the same thing. But here's where I want to reset expectations. None of these services are set it and forget it forever by default. The boring stuff, like version history, rewind, export options, and what happens during a suspension, is what separates good enough from life-ruining moment. So as we compare them, keep one question in mind. If something goes wrong, how quickly can I recover? And do I still control access? First, we'll talk about the poster child: Google Drive. Every Google account comes with 15 gigabytes of storage, shared across Gmail, Drive, and Google Photos. For free users, Google Drive is actually one of the most usable options. 15 gigabytes is generous, and for light documents, PDFs, and a modest number of photos, it can last a long time. The catch is that it's shared with Gmail and Google Photos, so over the years that space quietly fills without you realizing it. It works well as a starter, just not as a forever solution. Then, upgrading is simple. Google One's mainstream plans include 100 gigabytes for $1.99 per month, and 2 terabytes for $9.99 per month. Collaboration is still Google's standout feature. Google Drive is the easiest path from "here's a link" to "we're editing together," especially when you work with docs, sheets, or slides. That's pretty much the whole reason Drive became the default in schools, startups, and group projects. Google Drive for Desktop gives you two options: streaming or mirroring. Streaming keeps your files in the cloud, allowing you to access and modify them remotely. Mirroring, on the other hand, keeps 2 copies of your file, one on your device and one in the cloud. That's a real power user choice. Streaming saves disk space. Mirroring helps when you're offline or working with big files that perform better with local access. It's genuinely great that Google gives you that level of control, because one of the other options here takes a very different approach. One that can quietly change how your files are stored without you fully realizing it at first. The interface is also really great. It's intuitive and supports drag and drop. And I mean, it's Google. They really know how to make things look good. Now for the biggest downside that always comes up with big tech: privacy. Google's privacy policy states that it uses automated systems to analyze your content, including to detect abuse such as spam, malware, and illegal content. That could mean file-level restrictions or even the bigger risk, account lockout. On the bright side, though, Google says it doesn't show personalized ads based on content from Drive, Gmail, or Photos. For some people, that's reassuring. For others, automated scanning is still a concern. And one more real-world note for heavy users. If your drive is supposed to act as a giant archive, file counts can bite you since Google caps shared drives at 500,000 items. Most people will never hit that, but teams with years of exports, screenshots, and deeply nested folders can get surprisingly close. So you should definitely watch out for that. So Google Drive is still the best for effortless collaboration. If your work relies on sharing links, editing together in real time, and staying inside Google's ecosystem, nothing here feels faster or more natural. But that convenience comes with trade-offs. Deeper ecosystem lock-in, automated content scanning, and limits that only show up once you start using it at scale. And I'm curious, which one are you currently using? Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, or something else entirely? Drop it in the comments. Real-world experiences are always more interesting than spec sheets. Next is Microsoft's very own storage solution, OneDrive. OneDrive's superpower is Microsoft integration. It ties seamlessly into Windows 11 and Microsoft 365. Right from OneDrive's interface or your Windows File Explorer, you can create Word docs, Excel spreadsheets, or PowerPoint slides and save them straight to the cloud. If you already have a Microsoft 365 subscription, you automatically get at least 100 gigabytes of OneDrive storage included, and up to 1 terabyte per user, up to 6 terabytes on a family plan. The free tier, though, is clearly designed as a preview rather than a destination. 5 gigabytes is enough for a few documents and backups, but most people will outgrow it quickly, especially once Windows starts encouraging automatic folder syncing. It's useful for testing the service, but it's really meant to funnel users toward the Microsoft 365 bundle, where the real value lies. OneDrive should be extremely familiar to Windows users. The web interface and apps keep things tidy. There are tabs at the top for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and a left menu for quick links to files and photos. Sync is easy. Use Files on Demand to view all your cloud files without downloading them until you need them. In short, if you use Windows and Office, OneDrive feels totally natural. It's almost like it's part of the OS. But this brings us to the first real issue with OneDrive. It's so tightly baked into Windows that it doesn't feel optional. It feels like Microsoft really wants you to use it, whether you plan to or not. When you set up a new Windows 11 machine, OneDrive is already installed. At first, that doesn't seem like a big deal. Just another piece of bloatware. We've all seen that before. But here's the issue. Cloud syncing is usually turned on by default. That means from the moment you start using your computer, your files may already be uploading to the cloud automatically. And once that process finishes, Windows can delete those local files and replace them with cloud-linked versions instead. Now, that's not necessarily a bad feature, not if you chose it. The problem is, all of this happens by default. Not because you enabled it, but because it was enabled for you. And turning it off isn't always as straightforward as you'd expect. All things considered, though, that OneDrive makes the most sense when you already live in the Microsoft world. With Windows and Microsoft 365, it's less of an add-on and more of an extension of your computer, seamless, familiar, and tightly integrated. But that same tight integration is also the concern. When Cloud Sync is enabled by default and difficult to fully opt out of, it doesn't feel like a tool you chose. It feels like one chosen for you. By the way, if this breakdown is helping you see the differences a bit better, give the video a like so I know I'm doing something right. Finally, we're talking about the OG Dropbox. Dropbox was a pioneer in cloud file sync, and it still leads in raw reliability and simple syncing power. Its block-level sync means only the changed parts of a file are uploaded, so very large files sync much faster. This means that if you tweak a 1 gigabyte video file, Dropbox will update the change in seconds, while Google Drive or OneDrive might have to re-upload the entire file. This can depend on the file type and how syncing is handled. But in general, Dropbox is faster and more efficient for large files than Google Drive or OneDrive. Dropbox also has great integrations. Even though it's a competitor, you can create and edit Google Docs or Office files right inside Dropbox. And its paper app offers a lightweight, real-time document editor. You can share folders with simple view-only links, and paid plans let you password protect shares or set expiration dates. Dropbox's interface is very straightforward, and it works on anything. Windows, Mac, Linux, iOS, Android, you name it. The desktop app runs on your computer and syncs everything in your Dropbox folder. The web interface is very easy to navigate with quick links for files, shared folders, and even separate tabs for photos or e-signatures. Uploading is the standard drag and drop. Because Dropbox is single-purpose, there's almost no learning curve. Everything you need is right there. Dropbox's main downside is cost and storage limits. Its free plan is tiny, just about 2 gigabytes, and feels less like a long-term plan and more like a functional trial. 2 gigabytes is enough to experience the sync performance and interface, but not enough to build your workflow around. It's really there to demonstrate how well Dropbox works and then push you toward the paid version if you decide you like that simplicity. And even their paid consumer plans top out at 3 terabytes, well below Google Drive's 30 terabytes. But they still offer up to 15 terabytes for teams and companies. This is actually where my top pick comes in, pCloud. Instead of a monthly subscription like Dropbox, Google Drive, or OneDrive, pCloud offers a lifetime plan. Pay once, keep your storage forever. No renewal, no recurring bill years down the line. I've put a link in my discount code in the description if you want to check their current plans. Back to Dropbox, though. It's also missing a full-fledged Office suite like Google Docs or Microsoft Office. Its own paper app is minimal, so if you need built-in document editing or advanced media support, you have to rely on integrations. Security history is another consideration. Dropbox has had some well-publicized breaches. Since then, though, they've significantly improved their security practices, including stronger encryption, two-factor authentication, and overall account protection. And even though there haven't been any new breaches recently, it's still a bad stain on their reputation. But Dropbox is still the most focused of the three. It's not really trying to be your email provider, your operating system, and your productivity suite all at once. It just wants to sync files, and it does that extremely well. But you pay for that specialization with higher pricing, less built-in functionality, and fewer extras than the ecosystem giants offer. So if we break it down simply, Google Drive makes the most sense if you care about collaboration and ease of use, especially for students, teams, or anyone already using Gmail and Google Docs. OneDrive fits best if you're deep in the Windows or Microsoft 365 world. It's built into the system, and when it works the way you expect, it feels seamless. And Dropbox is really for people who just want fast, reliable file syncing, especially if you're working with large files like videos, design assets, or projects where speed actually matters. But none of them are perfect as a true long-term storage solution. They're designed around access and integration first, not necessarily ownership or control of your files. And that's an important distinction that only really becomes obvious after years of using them. Which is why the smarter question today isn't just which cloud is best. It's, do you actually want your storage tied to an ecosystem at all? And if you don't, if you'd rather have something that feels more like a standalone vault than an extension of a bigger platform, then you might want to look at something like pCloud. I've done a full breakdown of how it works, where it's different, and who it's actually for. So if you're curious, you can check that out next.